We're Sesh, and today we wanted to try to 100% Ocarina of Time with 2 people and see how long that would take. My playthrough took about 6.5 hours when I did it myself, utilizing exploits and other things and experience. My hypothesis is that it would take 3 to 5 hours to beat with 2 people. My concerns on the matter is the Deku Tree, because there's going to be a lot of sitting around for the guy not in the Deku Tree. Same with Jabu Jabu. And minimal side quests is another requirement we had.
Yeah, I guess we weren't really 100%ing it per se.
Did I say 100%?
You did say 100%. We were more so trying to barrel through it and complete the main story without doing too many side quests. Obviously, there were a few thrown in there that we did, but... And of course, we did the Bigoron quest, which we wanted to try to throw that in there as a...
because it'd be so much quicker to beat the temples with Bigoron sword.
Yeah, mandatory. Because fighting things with the Bigoron sword is just that much easier and could possibly save you some time.
Even if it did take us 15 minutes to do the Bigoron quest, we were also doing other things over Arcade.
That's true, that's true. So, Ocarina of Time is a game about a boy who gets summoned by this guardian tree spirit and set out on this adventure to essentially see a princess, where she explains that some kind of calamity is afoot caused by some man who was in meets and talks with the king, and it's up to...
Stop it. Get some help.
To Link, the main character, to go around and collect these spiritual stones in order to pick up the Master Sword, which can only be picked up by somebody who is deemed worthy by not only the sword, but the goddesses, I guess.
And the Master Sword is the Sword of Evil's Bane, like it literally says in the game. It literally repels evil, so... you can't pick it up if you're evil, and it only hurts evil things.
Yeah, if you're not the worthy or chosen hero, you cannot pick up the sword. But you end up getting the sword and going through all that, and then finally you get sealed away for 7 years. Once finally in the future, once it has been revealed, you get to come out and you explore Hyrule and go through 7 different dungeons in order to collect medallions and save the sages, so that you can confront Ganondorf at his tower and defeat him, and of course, save the world.
Yeah, that's true. This is also a story about coming of age, your place in the world, and your place in relation to everybody else in the world.
That's right. Yeah, this story, I suppose when it was actually, coming up in development, it was kind of a story more about like the coming of age and, the coming of the hero and becoming a man, however you want to put it. Which is really cool, I think, personally.
I think they really did it well, too, especially with the little slight dive into Shintoism where they started talking about the guardian spirits, which is a real thing.
Oh yeah, there's multiple guardian spirits here, because there's the Deku Tree, which is the guardian spirit of the forest, possibly the guardian of life.
There's Volvagia, the guardian spirit of the Gorons.
The guardian spirit of the Gorons is a large, like, serpent-like dragon, that had been turned evil by Ganon.
And then there's Jabu Jabu, the guardian spirit of the Zora people.
Or the guardian spirit of water, if you want. And, even as you go throughout the game, there's other types of spirits, like there's the Pose, or...
Well, those are more ghosts.
Yeah,
more than they are guardian spirits.
That, like, haunt certain temples and whatnot. It's honestly pretty cool. I like a lot of what went into it.
You're my friend now. We're having
but
soft
we're not
tacos
here to
later.
Lord on P right now. So we're just going to move on to the next section of what our hypothesis is.
So, actually first, we played a lot of this game in the past. And so we have a pretty good idea of where everything is, how to get it, what we need to do.
We played Rando back when it was 1.0.
Oh yeah, we were playing Rando back before they actually had the whole internet Rando thing going on. Remember how it took forever to figure out how to get it set up right the first time? It was glitched and bugged, and there was all kinds of problems with it. It was still so much fun. I remember when we were playing the Rando, and every time when we first used the music randomizer, how we would laugh at every single track that came across That was in every area because it was just so funny to us.
I remember the first seed we did, and it was the first time I figured out the exploit that if you climb to the tower as a kid and you side jump to the side, you can land on the fence. And I went up and I did that, and then I talked to the part-time guy with the weird pants.
Yep.
On the purple roof, and he gave me the mirror shield, and for some reason that was just awesome to me.
Oh yeah, when you're first playing those kinds of things. But yeah, so needless to say, we know quite a lot about this game as a generally playing.
I've been playing it probably since the 2000s, since I've been like 4 or 5 years old. I think I beat it the first time when I was like 5 or 6.
Yeah, that's kind of the same boat I'm at. I think I was 6 or 7 when I first beat it. Anyway, so having said that, we estimated that this run between 2 people would take anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. We weren't quite sure going into it. We know certain things could take a while, especially the story sequences.
God, did the story sequences take 10 years to finish sometimes?
Oh, yeah. So...
Shut up.
That was our general expectation. Anywhere from 3 to 5. I said 4 hours. We weren't quite sure how long things like the Bigoron sword would take. Like, I initially thought, I could probably have gotten it by the end of the Forest Temple. That was definitely not the case. It took quite a bit longer than that.
The reason I was so confused at first, whether I couldn't decide whether it'd be 3 or 5 hours, is one, depending on your skill level. I have a higher skill level than Mikey in some things, but the point generally I'm trying to portray is that when I did mine, I did it in like 6.5 hours. Solo. So I wasn't sure how that was going to differ with somebody else, especially because I found by yourself, mandatory, the kids section takes like an hour, hour and a half to complete. So I wasn't sure how that was going to differ in our time.
Yeah, even with 2 people, I think we found that it took
like an hour
at least. And that was, one of us running out on story sequences and whatever else. We really didn't think that most of the temples themselves would take very long.
Which, they really took like 20 minutes apiece.
Yeah,
20 or so.
If you know what you're doing and you're not really going for the fluff in the dungeons, like the dungeon maps, the compasses, the golden skulltulas, then each dungeon really only takes anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, if you're not out there collecting bloat.
And if you're, even better and you use things like Ferora's Wind to your advantage to kind of get around the dungeon, you can really shave off some time.
Which really only helps you in the water temple.
Yeah, that is incredibly helpful in the water temple. If you're just trying to run through the water temple and just get through it, keeping a warp point somewhere in the beginning room is definitely the way to go. So, here's what we found. So we found that the kids section probably took us about an hour. Like, it doesn't seem to matter what we did, we couldn't get it under an hour.
There are some things we could probably shave off. Like, you could go into the Jabu Jabu's belly having a better idea of what you're doing. And that'll probably shave off a few more minutes, excluding going the wrong way and utilizing certain items like Deku Nuts to be able to help you do things faster. Or alternatively, one thing that I found that I thought about is that I should have picked up the fairy slingshot and let you pick up some seeds in the forest on your way to do the forest challenge.
Right.
So there are small things you can do to bring down your time a little bit, but I don't think that you're going to get that much under an hour for the kids section.
No. I mean, you could probably shave it down a few minutes at best. If you don't mess up, shave off like a minute here or there. But even, when the earliest, the second person could leave the forest and even get down to the child's stealth and finally see the princess, it really didn't make that huge of a difference in the timing.
Not really at all. I was stressing a bit, but of course, it really didn't make that much of a difference.
No, it didn't. So,
because these story sequences are stagnant. They're stay there, and they're so thick that it's really hard to cut through them.
Yeah, the story sequences, you'll find yourself sitting at them. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a good chunk of this game as a whole that is just mostly story. You know, if you play through the game and it takes you 8 hours to get through it and just beat it, there's a really good chance that you're probably looking at, like, anywhere from, like, an hour, somewhere between an hour and an hour and a half filled with just story stuff. Because each sequence is, like, 5 to 10 minutes apiece.
And I looked it up online. It says the average is 23 hours, maybe 23 and a half hours to beat Ocarina of Time. Not even 100%, just complete it. And, I'm sitting here thinking, like, yeah, at least 8 of those hours are story sequences.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we found generally for the kids section. So when we finally pulled the Master Sword and we actually got to the adult section, it seemed like the world opened up a little more. There wasn't quite as much story happening once you finally pull the sword. So we had some stuff opened up to us. So when I withdrew it, I immediately tried to go and obtain the force so I could eventually get the Bigoron sword.
And I raced Dampé and got the hook shot, and then we met each other at the windmill so I could learn the Song of Storms and he could play the Song of Storms and jump immediately into the bottom of the well.
One after the other. I jumped right into the well, grabbed the Lens of Truth, went back and became an adult. Then I immediately went to the Long Ranch.
And I ran my happy blood all the way back to the forest and started the Forest Temple.
So, the Bigoron sword quest, as far as I can tell, takes about 50 minutes front to back. Now keep in mind that you also have to go into the Ice Cavern to get the blue fire and unfreeze King Zora, which if you were to just run in there and grab the blue fire, that would probably only take you about, 5 minutes maybe?
And there are other ways.
So you could shave a few minutes off.
If you're playing with 2 people, there are probably other ways to shave it down. Like if I wasn't in the temples trying to do the main task, I probably could have been at point B while he got point A and just waited for it to sync up. But then we wouldn't be in the temples, you know?
Yeah. Mod Loader is really interesting when you're trying to play stuff like multiplayer because you can have 2 people in the same world. They don't share wallets. They don't share ammo. But they do share items. Pretty much any of the other actual items. So
that includes songs, Skulltula tokens, medallions, and spiritual stones as well for items.
Yep, anything from equipment to status stuff. You share wallets, upgrades. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. But you don't share like the actual individual stuff like the rupees or the ammo for your bow and arrow or your slingshot. That stuff you gotta find yourself.
But if you do get an upgrade like a Deku Nut, Deku Stick, slingshot pellet holder, and quiver upgrades, that they do in fact maximize your partner's ammo out every time you get one.
Right. Yeah, so that's something interesting that we had to keep in mind. Like, when we went to pick up the Deku Stick upgrade, as long as the other person didn't pick up a Deku Stick, then they would get a full set, which was useful to us.
But as soon as you did, you'd only get to keep the one.
Right. I don't think that happened with the Deku Nuts, though, which kind of interested me. I had full Deku Nuts after you collected the upgrade.
That's true.
So I guess it really just depends on what it is. Maybe it'll update more in the future. I don't know. I like Mod Loader, but I think it could use a little bit of work.
Even though that has been updating for the past 2 years, there are cool things they did. They perfected the 3D market. They have online play being more stable now, but it's got a little bit of ways to go before it's considered perfect.
Yeah, it hasn't crashed as many times as it used to. Like, we used to have this issue with it. It would crash and then launch an error code, and you couldn't start it back up. You had to get a new one.
You had to install a whole new file for it and do the install from scratch.
Yeah, so that was... Yeah, it's definitely gotten quite a bit better. So, as we made our way through, once we finally got the Bigoron sword, you know, then it was pretty much downhill from there. We were like sprinting downhill.
He means to say that things were looking really good.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't doing bad. They weren't
No,
going downhill.
No, we weren't doing bad. We were sprinting down the hill.
Yeah.
I mean, like, full hauling it.
We were going full tilt. We were hauling.
Yeah, so I went and I did the water temple, which, honestly, you can complete the water temple in, like, 15 minutes if you know what you're doing. I have drilled the water temple over and over again at this point. I know where everything's at.
Mikey doesn't think it's the worst dungeon.
That's just totally wrong. It's just like wrong. It's just wrong.
So when we have a
not
party,
true. It's just not true.
You can talk to him about it in the comments if you want.
Yeah, so, and then he did the water, or he did the shadow temple, and I did the kids section in the spirit temple, and,
I love doing the Shadow Temple. Stupid easy. Give me, like, anywhere from, like, 10 to 15 minutes and boom, Bungo's on his way to the second afterlife.
yeah, even though the shadow temple is canonically the last temple, it doesn't seem to take as long as, you might think.
The Spirit Temple's longer.
Yeah, it is, which is interesting. The fire temple didn't take as long as I would have thought either. I always thought that the fire temple was one of the longer ones, but it didn't. That took like no time at all.
Yeah, no. It doesn't really take that long to complete the fire temple.
So it seems like between the actual temples and the side dungeons, they don't really take that long. It seems like you're doing a lot more work in the overworld than you are in the inside of the actual dungeons. Even when you add back the fluff from any of those dungeons, you might bump it from like that 20-minute mark to like 30 minutes. You might spend an extra 10 or 15 minutes running around one dungeon just to grab everything. And
that
even
includes
then,
skull tools.
yeah, and even then, if you come back with all the items later, it takes like 20 seconds to run through each dungeon and grab what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And you just warp out and you're done. So,
Like we said before, we've 100% of this game multiple times, so we knew where everything was and what to exclude.
right. So, how did we do?
Well, the result might surprise you. We got a little under 4.5 hours.
Yeah, it took about 4.5 hours, which I guess that fell within our estimates, between 3 to 5 hours. I think that if we didn't do the Bigoron sword, we probably could have shaved off a whole, 30 or 40 minutes. Because with the Bigoron sword, it is stronger. So, bosses and whatever else don't usually take quite as long.
But I'd also like to incorporate in the process of him trying to do the Big Ron quest, he also stopped and did the bottom of the well and the ice cavern, which are both main sequences.
Yeah, those would have had to have been done anyway. And I imagine, there was probably 15 or so minutes that was added because of the ice cavern. You gotta go in there to get blue fire and freeze King Zora.
And it's mandatory to get the Serenade of Water and the Iron Boots.
Right. You have to complete that. So when I ran it, I just ran straight through it. I didn't think much else of it. So if we could have done better, I definitely think that would be making sure we know the layouts of all the dungeons as well as we could, even if we were to drill some of them. So myself didn't do so great at Jabu. I probably added on an extra 5 to 8 minutes.
I would say somewhere around 15.
Yeah, just because I would either run the wrong way or I accidentally dropped Rudo into the the water, which for some reason she can't swim even though she's a Zora.
And your Ganon boss fight.
Oh yeah, no, that was atrocious. I died 3 different times in that fight. Luckily I had 3 fairies to account for it.
I did a no-death run.
I think when I fight Ganon, I have to make sure I take off the hover boots. The hover boots just mess me up in that fight, and I cannot figure out how to do it without taking them off. I think part of it might have been because I was rushing because I wanted to finish it quickly. If I wasn't rushing, I probably would have taken more time to actually be able to dodge properly.
The other thing that I found out is that, yes and no, going back on the Bigoron point, is that the Spirit Temple would have been twice as hard without the Vigor sword.
Right.
Bongo Bongo would have taken a whole second cycle, and Volvegia would have took another 10 minutes to complete.
And let's throw Dark Link on that list. Without the Bigoron sword, Dark Link is really hard to beat.
No, because if you have the second magic meter, all you gotta do is spam Din's fire, and most times he's dead.
Yeah, depends on how many hearts you have when you go through there.
We had like 10, so...
Yeah, so we probably could have done it like that. So when we were playing, there were a few times where one of us had to stand around and wait for the other, and I think that's just standard when you're playing the original game. You know, because in some places there's just not a lot for player 2 to actually do. So I guess it would be easier for them to go around and do like certain side quests, but for some of them you need to be so far or have certain items in order to actually do some of those side quests.
And I guess part of it is that's what happens when you try to make a single player game multiplayer.
Yeah, it's got its quirks and, you know, things that don't always work out quite well. I imagine that the randomizer when you're playing the multiplayer is probably
much easier.
Far better. Because one, you don't have those story sequences. I know I keep touching on those story sequences. They are long.
Story. Most of your gameplay is just story.
It seems like it, yeah.
Which I'm not bashing the story. The story is one of my favorite stories in existence.
Oh, absolutely. It's great. It's just...
It takes a while
when
you're trying to figure out how long it takes to beat it.
Like, it absolutely would have been nice if the skip button had been invented by then. But yeah, so... in conclusion, I think we had a pretty successful run.
Yeah.
All in all.
I'd say that it went really well. There's enough research conducted, we learned a lot of experience, and hell, we even had some fun along the way.
Yeah, maybe we'll end up trying another one. We're sorry that there's not as much video as there should be, given that we spent 4.5 hours doing this. There should be like 9 hours of video for this. But every single time we actually went to record this, something went wrong.
Whether it was mod loader crashing, the internet had an outage last night from the company, or OBS just decided to not work at all.
I think we must have tried to record this at least 7 or 8 different times, and every single time we tried, it just ended in failure because something went wrong. At this point we were like, maybe we're just not allowed. University is not allowed to record this.
FBI, open up, me and we're trying to unravel secrets of the universe in here. Doesn't want us to know how long we can beat Ocarina of Time together.
It's fully state secrets.
But all in all, it was a good run, and I did kind of have a lot of fun with it.
Oh yeah, it was absolutely fun. Fun to run around the world with your bro, occasionally making jokes, because we were playing as Yugi and Joey for a little while, and of course Joey's final form, Dark Magician Girl.
And if y'all want to see more of this, me and Mikey are thinking about doing Majora's Mask.
Oh yeah, Majora's Mask is absolutely the next one. I'm very interested to see what we could do with that.
After we finish My Dude's Quest Part 2, the Majora's Mask run that we're doing, the actual playthrough we're doing, we plan on trying to do the same thing we did with Ocarina, and trying to see how fast we can beat it with 2 people. But I'd also like to see if you guys could subscribe and support some of those things, and maybe leave comments to show how you guys are actually liking our playthroughs.
Yeah, we're trying to get in good with everybody. We like playing games. I'm sure there are a lot of you out there that like watching people play games. So, it's a win-win for all of us. So if you do happen to enjoy what we're doing, give us a like and subscribe, maybe a comment, It's all in good fun here. That's what we're all about.
Let's all try to follow Ted's Rule 10. Let's all have fun and play together.
Yeah, it doesn't get much simpler than that. Alright.
Number 10. Let's all have fun.
We thank you for watching us. We hope that we see you in the next one. And we hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yep.
Thanks for joining the sesh.
Thanks for joining the session. You can join the session next time. Well, see you next time. We'll have some fun.
See you next time.